Yes. Thank you, Michelangelo Signorelli, for passing the mic to me. This is going to be so exciting because, as you can tell, Whitney's in the background, honey. And when she is, and we're talking about every woman, I have to say that this young woman who is I'm bringing to you guys today for Pass the Mic is truly, she spoke to me in such a fabulous way right through the TV screen, fighting for when I see people like Representative Jasmine Crockett, yes, that's who's here. Take a moment. Yes, I do have her on the show. Hello. Jasmine Crockett, representing Texas's 100 district in the state of Texas and getting ready, honey. She's on the trail now to take over the district, 30th district, I believe it is, in Texas. Now, that does include Dallas and Fort Worth and pieces of all of that, or just Dallas proper?
So it includes the southern Dallas County portion, so a number of cities. And then we go over into Tarrant County, but we don't get all the way to Fort Worth. We get a little bit of Arlington, and then we get the Tarrant County portion of Grand Prairie.
Wow. So for those of you who are not from Texas, it's very interesting when I see sisters coming from Texas representing, wanting to represent Texas, should I say, because as you all know, when you hear me do my comedy and when I'm talking to people on those other shows, I always talk about how I'm so embarrassed a lot of times from the news that comes out of Texas. And this young lady, whatever we can do to help Jasmine Crockett get her behind all the way to the House of Representatives and then everywhere else that she wants to go from that place forward, y'all need to get on it with Miss Jasmine Crockett, because I feel like this is one of those people that's leading in the right way. And she makes me very proud of being from Texas. So Jasmine, girl, hi, how you doing, baby?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I am so thrilled to have you here. First of all, as I said before, you make me very, very thrilled to be from Texas again. You brought that back for me. And what I wanted to know is, first of all, because everyone has been able to watch you, at least for those of you who are watching now or listening now, you remember Jasmine Crockett was part of a large delegation of Texas representatives that left Texas in the middle of their session to not give these people a quorum to do the dastardly, horrific things that they have been doing for the last, I don't know how long, so openly and so brazenly. And she, along with this delegation, came to DC to talk to the people that are really running everything and get them to understand. And, not for nothing, bet with a brick wall as far as I'm concerned, because we saw what the Supreme Court just did to Alabama. We see what's happening in Texas. It's like, and so for you, as you were stepping into this, one of the things that someone said to me was to ask, one of my friends wanted me to ask you, is how are you as a woman of color dealing with, as we can clearly see the voting issues being basically taken apart and distilled in such a horrific way, taking away the votes for people of color, literally. So how first of all do you deal with wanting to still get in the mix, knowing that this is out there facing you? And secondly, what kind of advice do you give to other folks that are like there's folks just like you in Alabama, there's folks like you in Mississippi that are wanting to be a part of the system and wanting to make the changes that need to be happening, and they're going to be facing this stuff too. So how do you talk to them too?
Yeah, I think that this is when we have to dig in deeper, right? Obviously our power is the scariest thing to so many Republicans in this country right now. And, people keep saying, oh, our politics, we're getting so divided. It's not that we're getting so divided at all. It is that one party has decided that they will go and find as many white supremacists as they can. And that's all they're going to do. And it's frustrating because honestly, Black folk are very conservative.
Right.
They really
yes.
are. I mean, there's so many conservative values, and there's honestly a lot of Black people that really only aren't Republicans because they're like, wait a minute, like, because I can't do anything about my race. I can't do anything about my color. And y'all keep pushing these policies that are racist. But when you talk about what a traditional Republican looks like, there's a lot of Black folk that actually completely agree with so many of the principles. And so we really could be living in a healthy two-party situation in this country. But instead, we're living in this situation where it's either white or wrong. Right. And that's the problem. But this is when it's time to say, you know what? We're going to show you what right looks like.
Right.
And it doesn't look like this. And so we've got to push back. And I think about the John Lewis's who at, in his 20s was out there on the front lines and risking his life. And that's why when everybody said, oh, y'all left and y'all did this, I'm like, honestly, we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Not compared to what those people did that afforded me an opportunity to even be an elected official. And so for me, it was a matter of, I had some colleagues that were like, oh, it's time to go home. No, it's not. Like, I need y'all to channel the struggle of what some people really went through to get us here. And I think that we all have to say enough is enough. We saw what happened in Georgia, and Georgia scared them. Yes. Texas specifically referenced Georgia and said, we don't want Texas to be Georgia. So therefore, what they were doing is sending a dog whistle and saying, hey, too many people of color voted in Georgia. And if we allow these people of color to vote, then we know that we're going to lose. And frankly, you lose Texas, you never get the White House back. Like, you have to win Texas.
You have to win Texas.
So it was very close. And our demographics, we look more like California. You wouldn't think it based on the policies, but that's because they've been suppressing the vote in the first place. So they were like, let's take it to the next level. Yeah. And so I just tell those people, number one, just know we didn't get this far, but for people digging deep. This is our time to dig deep and make sure that we're doing our part for those that are coming behind us.
All right, honey. That's Representative Jasmine Crockett, 100th District of Texas, as a Texas representative, and running in November to take the spot on the 30th district seat. Your predecessor, or soon, hopefully, knock on wood, soon to be predecessor, that's going to take this role. When you think about her, that's Representative, I want to call Miss Eddie because she just, yes, we from Texas, Miss Eddie, Representative Miss Eddie. When you think about the 30 or so years that she's put in being a public servant, right? And then you think about the fact that she grew up in Texas at the time when the whole thing about voting rights was, the bloodshed that it was at the time. How good do you feel that she is like right behind you on this process, on this journey? I'm just so excited. Representative Miss Eddie. Hey, Miss Eddie.
No, she is absolutely phenomenal. It's so interesting because of my age and me growing up in St. Louis, what I know of her is the current version of her. But obviously she knows herself, right? And what most people don't know, so she's been in public office for about 50 years. So she was one of the first 2 Black women elected to the Texas House 50 years ago. Her and Senfronia Thompson came in at the same time. And so, it's interesting to hear her tell me the stories of what it was like to run then, why she ran, and the struggles and the fights. And so she talks to me about the boycotts of the fancy stores in downtown Dallas. Neiman Marcus being one of those stores at that time. Yep. And ultimately, through her leadership and the leadership of so many Black folk in Dallas, they were able to change the landscape of how shopping happened and occurred as it relates to Black folk going into some of these stores downtown Dallas. Wow. And she ended up with like this great relationship with Stanley Marcus. And so when she ultimately was elected to the legislature, he actually gave her a job. And so It's amazing what can happen with just a little bit of advocacy and education. And so I don't know that, Eddie, like I wasn't born. So I knew nothing about that, or that, there are people that are like, oh, how can Jasmine say she's a progressive and accept this establishment endorsement? And Eddie was one of the first people to file LGBTQ bills back in the 70s. Wow. And so she tells me the stories of like the Black ministers wanting to talk to her about this. And she was like, listen, I have to fight for equity for all. That's everybody. And that is who I am as a civil rights girl. Like, that's everything that I do. And most people don't know We have an area in Dallas called Oaklawn, also affectionately known
Yes.
as the neighborhood.
That's it.
And so,
Honey, give me some Cedar Springs on a good day, girl. What?
exactly, that's exactly right. And so she was actually advocating and wanting to get Oaklawn back into the district. She represented Oaklawn some years ago, and she really wanted it back in the district. And it's now back in the district. So it's now part of District 30. I have been blessed enough to earn the endorsement of Dallas Black Pride. Actually, I think it's Dallas Southern Pride, as well as Stonewall Democrats. But I have been a very big advocate. And so it's interesting because I'm like, y'all, she was a progressive before they had a name for it, right? And so I think, it probably looks a little different like nowadays, right? But overall, like she's been ahead of her time. And she has been that person that really went from protest to policy. And that's exactly what I've been, is that person that has been in the streets, has protested, but I understand the bigger picture. And I understand the role that protest plays, and I participate. But I also know that we got to have like real ones that are writing the policies. And so, we talk almost every night. We talk all the time. And, she's constantly like, it's almost like I'm on the ballot. I want you to win so bad, And so we're fighting through this together because, one of the things about politics is I'm just not a fan of it at all. I mean, it's a necessary evil as far as I'm concerned, emphasis on evil. Like, I really hate it. I really do. And I think so many good people because of the evil nature that is associated with politics. But, I am in love with the possibility of change for people. And that's what like drives me. That's what keeps me going. It's like the people, the politics. I promise you, I'm like, y'all don't realize I'm a real person. and I get to feel in some kind of way. And I really just want to be like, so y'all want all this Black girl magic to come through. But
they can't handle the truth, girl. They can't handle the truth.
I just, I sit there and I'm like, okay, and it's funny because I've had some friends remind me of once Joe Biden kind of started to take off and he started to win states and polling was coming back favorably for him. Everyone started shooting at Joe. Everybody.
Yep.
Everybody had a problem with Joe. I specifically remember some things that the VP was saying. Everybody had a problem with Joe once he kind of, and so that's the nature of it. We have been leading in the polls the entire time.
Yeah.
Now, due to history, I don't rely on polls for sure. I'm begging everybody, let's blow the polls out the water. Let's forget they even exist. Okay. Like,
exactly.
Let's just go vote. Right.
Who are they actually talking to? That's what I always wonder.
It's interesting because I've been that girl too. But right, when you run for like federal office, like, DC don't know. Right. Like DC is like, okay, you're running. Like they don't know the difference. Right. Like I've got 8 opponents. And so a difference maker for them is polling. Now, I will say that the polling has been consistent because usually the only person that talks about polling is the person that's leading in the polls. Right. So I know at least 2 of them did poll. 2 other ones did polling and they ain't said nothing. Okay. So they had something that was different, and one of them told me that they knew that I was far ahead in the polls and whatever. But forget the polls, y'all. I need y'all to vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Vote early, and I would say vote often, but that's what the Republicans say we do all the time. So, but no, vote early and take some with you to vote. That's what we'll say. So we actually start voting. Early voting is it's February 14th, and election day is going to be on March 1st. So, long story short, she and I. We talk a lot. We've talked about voting rights. We've talked about the 94 crime bill. We talk about LGBTQ issues. We talk about healthcare because she is a registered nurse. But, it's been tough for both of us because there are some people that are so attracted to power that will lie, cheat, and steal in any way that they can. And it's not been limited to attacks on me. There have been attacks on her. And so we're both really tired and we really are just trying to get done.
Well, you know what? Just ask right to my next question is like, knowing what you're going through right now, knowing what Representative Miss Eddie said, because I've never met her, but that's who she's going to be to me. Please don't tell her, no disrespect. That is with all of my Texas upbringing.
I understand.
That, what would make you decide to want to be in public service so strong to put up with all of this? Because I have a theory, but what's doing it for you? What's motivating you? What was it? And also, what was that moment when you said, oh yeah, I have to start, this is who I'm going to be, this is the person I want to be? When did that happen, and what was it that did it?
I don't think we've gotten to that moment yet, to be perfectly honest. But my motivators really is just honestly fear.
Yeah.
I am very nervous about the direction that our country is going in. And I don't know that I really trust anyone else to love as purely as I do, as well as have the skill set, right? But I think that there's a lot of people that have the heart, but having the actual skill set is a whole other can of worms. And, I currently have opponents that have no idea what a congressperson does. And that's just the reality. I think their heart is in the right place. And I think that they want to be a public servant. I just think that they don't have the skill set. Like, they don't understand that the job is to write federal legislation, and what things do the federal government actually control, and what does that look like? And do you know any federal laws, right? Like, I have practiced law in federal courts. And so it's just like when I went into the state house, I knew it was a bunch of laws that I wanted to change. So I was like, I don't like this one, I don't like that one. And so I had so many in my head, it wasn't a matter of refiling old bills. I was filing new stuff that had never been filed because I had lived within our codes. I had worked within our codes. And so it's similar in that vein, where I'm fearful that if it's not me, that we will not have the best advocate. We will not have somebody that can sit there and kill bills in committee because they don't really understand. I've got like a number of opponents that are just like, oh, our crime is bad, so I'm gonna fix crime. And I'm like, so we don't control municipal police, right? Like, you need to go holler at city council, right? Like, that's who is gonna set out the policies for their local government, right? Like, and maybe on the state level, there's things that we can do as well. But on the federal level, it's more so gonna be reactionary, right? Like, it's gonna be, what does qualified immunity look like? It's going to be that stuff where somebody already been hurt, right? But we don't write like the local policies for how to police. Like, we don't really do that. And so, really, there's a lot of education that has to go on with my constituents, because if my opponents don't quite understand many of the things that we do, you can only imagine how confusing it is for many of my constituents that are really just trying to literally in the state of Texas keep their lights on, right? Literally just try to keep their lights on. But it's my fear and it's my love. I mean, I love really, really hard, and I really, really want so much better. And it's that next generation. That next generation. In fact, I found out about this article that people published today because there's this young genius, and she really is a genius. Haley probably is 19 at this point, maybe 20. But I believe she just graduated law school. Like, she's
dang, she's a Doogie Howser in it, huh?
She was in law school by like either maybe 15, 16 years old or something like that. Super duper smart, super duper passionate. She's just freaking amazing. I feel like there's nothing she can do. And I look at her and I'm like, you're way smarter than I ever was, right? Like, I'm like, who knows what you're going to do in life, right?
And that's how I look at you, because I'm like, girl, even in by what I thought was my heyday, I'd evoking any kind of change. But I love that because you're recognizing that brilliance, and the fact that you're standing where you're standing right now, your shoulders now are about to get stepped on now by this young woman. And this young woman, like you, because Representative Mercedes said that she's been watching you, and she admires the energy and the tenacity that you bring to this. And by that's what helps her get behind you. And the same thing that you're doing right now to this young woman is even more exciting because
Yeah.
it's saying something that I truly believe, and I say this all the time, and I say this to a friend of mine all the time, that Black women are about to do the thing. Y'all finna do the thing.
Yeah.
Y'all got to do the thing because we can't, white men ain't gonna give up anything. And
No.
and I always say, like, I just wrote this piece and it's titled is Hush Hush Black Woman, because I'm so tired of people trying to silence Black women, especially.
Yeah.
And that's what I see is happening. It happened to my, friend in my head, Leslie Jones. That's went on with her, Miss Whoopi, and then the mere fact that they've mentioned that they want to put a Black Supreme Court justice on the Supreme Court that is a woman, the craziness that's ensued. And it's like, what are y'all so afraid of? And I know what it is. Y'all are afraid of the fact that women like you, Miss Jasmine, and women that have endured, like Representative Mercedes, hey, y'all ain't afraid of much. If nothing, I would say would be like, that's just being too hyperbolic, but y'all are not, there's not it's going to take a lot to really shake you from this.
Yeah.
And that's it for me.
The more that somebody tries to come for me, that is all the affirmation that I need that I'm doing what's right. Because if you're a non-factor, ain't nobody talking about you, ain't nobody tripping about you. But we've got to be able to push the needle, and we've got to be able to be this pure and authentic voice. Because honestly, we have held the Democratic Party down.
Hello.
Like Black women have held the Democratic Party down. And so this idea that we're good enough to hold it down and to put you into office, but people don't take the time to want to elevate us and give us a seat at the table. Well, if we're going to pick our leaders, then we should actually be able to be some of those leaders. Amen. And so in the perspective that we add, like the struggle that we add to the conversation, that is necessary. There's crazy bills that passed through the Texas House, but they didn't pass without me putting my flavor on it. They didn't pass. The record is clear of what I had to say. And it's interesting because, I got some hate coming right now because we got a couple of super PACs that have jumped in behind me. Praise God for them. I'm just going to say that. That's the good old Lord trying to get us out of this 9-way race.
What is it? Won't he do it? Okay.
Exactly. And so I woke up yesterday to a text message from a friend saying, "Oh, I love your commercial on Fox 4. And I text my team and I was like, "We ain't got money for broadcast." I was like, "What's going on?" And they were like, "Rep, we didn't do that." And I was like, but she said she saw a commercial. And so I asked her, I said, "Did you see the flame above my head?" She said, "The flame?" I said, "Yes, the fire." And she said, "The fire?" I said, "Yes." I was like, "That's our commercial. Our commercial has fire." And she was like, "Nah, Rep, there was no flame. There was no fire." I said, "Well, I don't know what's going on." So then about 10 minutes later, my mama texted me all these pictures and she was like, "Somebody put you on TV." So she was watching Channel 11. And so, to have people see who I am, and you never know who's watching, but they took all these different clips of me, all kinds of different stuff. And one of them, and I was reading my lips, and I remember that moment, and it was a breakdown moment for me on the floor. And we had this bill about defunding the police.
Right.
And so one of my colleagues, Caucasian man who knows nothing about anything related to the protest, right?
The usual.
He was the one, he was filing the bill, and the bill was going to pass because, he's a Republican or whatever. And so I was sitting there and I was frustrated by this bill, and I'm just sitting there. And at some point in time, he decides that he wants to start talking about how Dallas had to have troopers come into our district because we didn't have enough police. And so the Texas State Troopers, that falls under our purview. So they said, "Miss Davis," talking about Rep. Yvonne Davis. "Miss Davis, we had to send troopers to your district because y'all needed more help. So you should love this bill."
Ooh.
So I was like, okay, I can't take it. Okay. So I got up out of my seat. And first thing I said when I got on the back mic was, now I had to get up out of my chair and rush over here in my little kitten heels so that I could correct the record. This is what I said. I promise you. I promise you. You go run the tape. And so I said, first of all, the troopers didn't go to Miss Davis' district. They came to my district. just to be clear. And I
Mhm.
said, and do you know why they came to my district? And he was like, no, or why they left my district. And he said, no, Ms. Crockett, I'm unaware. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, this is why you shouldn't be filing this bill, especially if you're basing it on my district. Let me file what I need to do for my, but anyway.
Mhm.
So I said,
mind your business.
that part, right? Like handle your district, I handle mine.
Got
so
it.
I said, it's because they killed yet another unarmed Black man. Did you know that? And so he was like, well, I know, no, Ms. Crockett, I'm not. I was like, but that's the problem. And I said, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And I talked about Miss Symphonia Thompson, who is still serving in the House, who filed the George Floyd Act in Texas. I said, you're talking about policing and the budget, but you're not talking about the real issue, which is policing in Texas. And that's what we're supposed to be focused on. I was like, we've not had her bill on this floor yet. And so anyway, but I was going off and it was just, and so I went off and I was ultimately crying at the end. And I was just like, that's what's wrong in this house and whatever.
Yeah.
So, but the point is, sometimes it just matters to have that perspective and that voice, because the people that are writing the laws for us have no idea of what the struggle looks like in my district. Amen. And so you can't have somebody who doesn't really understand the district, doesn't go and walk through the district. And I'm not talking about just walking in the nice parts of the district. People will tell you, they learned after the fact, that I was walking, I walked a few trap houses as I was running. Okay. Like I walked every part of my district.
You did those, and you probably did those district parts in your Nikes versus a kitten heel, but I'm not, because we got to keep it real. We know you're dealing. Okay.
I did. Honestly, most of the time when I'm on the streets, I'm in tennis shoes anyway. I don't walk. I'm not one of those fancy politicians. I get fancy when I got to, and that's when I'm on the House floor. That is for sure. Otherwise, I am very low key. I'm in my Jasmine blue jean jacket or something like that. Very low key. But I absolutely walked and talked to everybody. And I mean, we won our first race by 90 votes. That's it, 90 votes.
Wow.
And I was the comeback kid because I was down by 700 votes on election day after early voting had been done. And then on election day, we ended up getting more votes than my opponent. But I remember there's a portion of my district in South Dallas, and it's Martin Luther King. So we have a voting center at the Martin Luther King Library, and it's on Martin Luther King. And Texas gets really, really hot. I'm sure y'all already know that.
Yeah, of course. Honey. I ain't forgot. I just can't do it. I don't do it, but I never forgotten, honey.
Super hot. So we did our runoff in the middle of the pandemic in July. Normally we would have been doing our runoff in like May. And so it was so hot. So we actually had like jasmine water. We had all kinds of stuff, right? So we had this bottled water, it had jasmine on it. And my office was right down the street. And so we would have these unhoused persons that were always somewhere near like the MLK Center or whatever. And I was very concerned about them overheating. And there were other things that I did. Like I go and I just do me. I don't ever look for votes, right? I'm always talking to elementary kids. They can't give me no votes. I'm always doing the things that can't. And people be like, Rep, you need to do it. I'm like, but this is what I love to do. I love the people. Right. I love the kids. So anyway, so there were these unhoused people, and I was really concerned that they were literally going to have some health issues. Right. And so I hit him up one day and I was like, yo, I can run to the office because like I don't see y'all with any water. I am very concerned. We have water in our fridge. It's cold, whatever. So I like went and got them a bunch of like the little jasmine waters. I took it to them. And one of my poll greeters one day said, there was a whole bunch of like unhoused people that like walked in to vote for you. And I was like, what you mean? And they was like, they were here to vote for you. And I was like, what? Wow. And so like, I didn't do it for that. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And so just the other week, one of my friends, there was a rally. And so after the rally, they had like some beers and whatever outside, and there were some unhoused people, and they were offering them beers as well and stuff. And so they were sitting around and they were talking about politics. And some of them chimed in and said, yeah, we can't wait to vote for Miss Jasmine because she's running for Congress. Boom. And she's like, did you know that? And I was like, I did not, because clearly I ain't sending no mailers, right? Like,
where they gonna get them?
I did not. I was like, but they keep their ear to the street, like, and they really, I mean, it's just sometimes, like, not sometimes, it's always a good time to do the right thing and not just be so political about stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Because you never know who's watching, who's encouraged, and who wants to be involved. And I'm sure that there are no other people in my race that have probably ever taken the time, but we have a huge housing issue. We have a huge homelessness population. We have all of that. And, I'm like, they're still our constituents, whether they vote or don't vote, can vote, can't vote. They're still our constituents. And when you're elected, you represent everybody.
Everybody. Well,
And
Jasmine, I don't, because I know you have to go, and I will talk to you forever and a day, young lady. I just want you to know that. But for those of you guys who are listening, you understand why I couldn't help but to try to have her today as passing the mic and talking, because this is my opportunity not only to finally get to meet her, because I've been a fan of you for a good year now, just watching you on TV turning people out, but like I also feel like when you are given an opportunity to present on a platform, you try to do the very best that you can. And you, my dear Miss Jasmine Crockett, you're exactly what I hope to see for the future. Like, I look at you and I see my niece and I see her looking for, those kinds of role models, and you are out there. So you continue to do what you need to keep doing to get this done, because the future of democracy and the futures of Democrats everywhere depend on the kind of work that you're doing. So for those of you who are listening, and yes, I'm tearing up, shut up. Those of you who are listening, you better go find Representative Jasmine Crockett, Jasmine Crockett for Congress.com.org.
we're Jasmine for Us.
JasmineForUs.org. So, Jasmine, thank you so much. And you guys listening, I will be back. I got more for you guys.
Thank you.